my journey to mindful travel, and 3 insights about responsible travel that I've learned from my own personal journey as a traveler and a travel blogger. And I had already come up with these 3 topics that I want to cover: ecotourism, ecology, and economy. And then I got very excited yesterday to hear the presentations from Adrian and also Philip when they talked about people, planet, and profit. And I realized that they map exactly with what I'm talking about today. So we're all on the same page with these concepts. So I just quickly added them in red, that when I talk about ecotourism, it's people, and when I talk about ecology, it's the planet, and the economy is profit. So I'm pretty excited that we're all talking about the same thing going forward. So, but before I do start my own personal journey, we all know these beautiful images of travel that we see online and on Instagram, and we've probably all seen this particular photo or something similar, the sunrise at Angkor Wat. It's a classic kind of bucket list destination. And we've probably all seen the behind-the-scenes photos, where there are sometimes as many as 6,000 people clamoring to take that shot for their social media platform. Another one, a little closer to home, of course, is the Taj Mahal, on many people's bucket list. And because of that, and because it's also a top Instagrammable location that gets a lot of likes, we also, when we go there, realize that it's thronging with hordes of tourists. So that's the reality that sometimes you don't see on social media. And then even closer to home, the top bucket list item here in Nepal is, of course, either summiting Mount Everest or trekking to Everest Base Camp or doing something with Everest, because that's their top tourism attraction. But as we all know, there are sometimes problems associated with that, where you might find hordes of tourists at Everest Base Camp, and you might find garbage on the mountain as well, and we know this is a problem. So this problem of sometimes it's called over-tourism, but I've learned recently that has a very specific definition. And sometimes, you might just call it, what I'm calling it today, bucket list tourism, is a growing problem around the world. And in fact, last summer, I believe it was, Barcelona staged a protest against, in this case, over-tourism. So I want to talk about possibly an alternative to bucket list tourism, and maybe we can call it kicking the bucket or kicking the bucket list. So that's kind of what I want to present today, and I want to present it through my own personal experience. I started traveling in India 12 years ago, and I hadn't traveled very much before. I hadn't been a backpacker, but I decided, for various reasons you can read about on my blog if you want, that I needed a really big trip. So I went to India for 6 months, which is kind of like diving into the deep end of the pool. India is a famously challenging travel destination, and I had very little experience. I mean, I was green. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to book a train ticket. I brought tons of stuff I never used, never needed. I really had no idea what I was doing. And I liken my start of my journey to the Fool in the Tarot deck. And if you know the Tarot deck, the Fool is the first card at the beginning of the journey, often pictured as somebody about to blithely walk off a cliff because they're looking up with a dreamy expression on their face. And yeah, that was me. But got a lucky break, and I was picked up at the airport in Delhi by a friend of a friend, somebody I'd met many years before when he visited Canada, a man named Ajay, and he took this picture of me, my first photo in India when I landed, the day after I landed in December 5th, 2005. And so I spent my first days as a traveler and in India in an Indian family home in South Delhi. And in fact, they're a Punjabi family, which has had an almost instant, disaster effect on my waistline. So I spent that 6 months traveling literally the length and breadth of India, from Dharamshala in the north, where I volunteered with Amma Ade and the Tibetan refugee community, and she is a hero amongst the Tibetan people, all the way down to the southern tip of India, which is Kanyakumari, and the thing to do here is get up at sunrise in the very tip of India. And I went to Kanchipuram in Tamil Nadu, Jaipur, and of course the Taj Mahal. But I was in India for about 4 months before I went to the Taj Mahal. But as I traveled, I kept going back to that, that's my Indian family in Delhi. I kept going back to that family home, and they were like my home base and my sanctuary, and I actually became part of the family. And, over the years, staying with them, living with them, I celebrated Diwali and family weddings. And this experience of living with an Indian family completely changed my trip. It gave me a window into the culture I just otherwise would never have had. And it inspired in me a really deep love of the Indian culture. And it made me realize, I guess, my first two concepts about responsible travel or sustainable tourism, whatever you want to call it. And this was my favorite place, the sunset from the terrace in Delhi. And so the first two concepts I realized, here, I'll just skip ahead. That's my first travel blog, by the way, travelblog.org, back in December 2005. So that makes me, I think, one of the first travel bloggers on the Indian subcontinent. Lakshmi Sharath, is there anyone else? I mean, I was definitely one of the first, or in the first wave for sure. But I just want to share with you, the first insight I had falls under the heading of economy or profit, which is that if you see travel as an experience rather than a commodity, not something that you're buying, not a bucket list item that you're checking off, or something that you're posting for likes on social media, but if you see it as an experience and you allow the experience to change you and to affect you, and you engage with the community at a more personal level. Well, anyway, this is what happened to me, was that it really inspired for me a respect for the culture, and also this idea of community-based tourism, staying in homestays, spending your money in the local economy. And I can see you nodding, Philip. It's a very important tenet or principle of responsible travel, is to make sure the money stays in the local economy and benefits the local economy and benefits the environment as well. And I just want to make this relevant for Nepal. Now, I took this slide from Shannon Stoll's TED Talk, and he's the CEO of the Adventure Travel Trade Association, and he reported that with the case of mass tourism, revenue that remains in a country is only 14%. That means most of it goes to a foreign-owned multinational, probably. But with adventure tourism, it's approximately 65%. And of course, adventure tourism is a big thing here in Nepal, which means this is a very good model and a very good road for Nepal moving forward. So that's my first travel story. Now, my second travel story. I had a wonderful opportunity about a year and a half ago. Who here knows Abhishek Bail? Anybody? Anybody know Abhishek? Anyway, he was the marketing director for Pug Dundee Safaris and a very good friend of mine. And I got the opportunity because of him, and also because I was working for Exodus Travels, to spend an entire month in the jungles and tiger reserves of Madhya Pradesh in December 2016. So one of the top tiger reserves in India is Bandhavgarh National Park, and the other one, my favorite, is Kanha National Park. So I spent an entire month going on game drives and going from lodge to lodge. I went on about 17 different game drives, and I saw just incredible, pristine wilderness, wildlife, birds, all kinds of amazing animals. I don't know if you know this one. The Barasinga is a hard-ground swamp deer. And the only place you can find these in the wild is in Kanha National Park in Madhya Pradesh. And back in the 1970s, there was only 60 of these animals left on Earth. And thanks to a captive breeding program at Kanha National Park, there's now more than 700 Barasinga in the wild, and they're actually now starting to move them to other national parks. So that was an exciting thing for me to learn and experience. And then, of course, on my very first game drive in Bandhavgarh National Park, we saw fresh pug marks. Those are called pug marks, and that's the tiger. And the pug marks are fresh. You can see they're sitting on top of the tire tracks. And then the hunt was on, and I had my very first experience at a tiger safari, an exciting tiger chase to try and see one of these beautiful animals in the wild. And it resulted in success. This is a picture of that tiger taken by someone who was in the Jeep with me. I took some video, which I didn't upload, but we got a very good sighting. We got about 10 or 15 minutes of seeing this tiger. And since then, I've actually seen a total of 18 tigers. And I have to tell you, it's possibly the most exciting travel experience of my life. The tiger electrifies the forest. If you've never experienced it, it's hard for me to put it into words. But it's an incredibly exciting thing. Not just the tigers, all the wildlife, the beauty of these places. And I came back from this trip a different person. And I felt this calling to preserve the environment and to protect it. And I've become a tiger conservationist. And the insight that I draw from this travel story is that it was the fact that I had this immersive experience, that I experienced it for myself, that was what opened me up to the beauty of nature, and this also applies to culture, and the need to respect it and protect it. It's not enough to just tell people, but if you give people an experience and it really moves them, then they will want to protect the environment, clean it up, and whatnot. So that's my insight number 2. And insight number 3, I need a prop. Hang on a second. Oh, I don't know where it is. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Okay, insight. I'm carrying this bottle, and if anybody's seen me around the conference this weekend, you'll see I'm pretty much always carrying this bottle. So I became an ambassador for this company, Better Places Travel. They're a Netherlands-based company. They're a responsible tourism company. And before I came to South Asia in September, I brought this bottle with me. And I traveled for 7 months across mostly India, but I was also in Nepal in March with this bottle. And I'll just show you a few pictures of me filling it up at the Tour Operators Conference in Kerala in that was in September. And then more recently, when I was in Patan in March, and there I am in Kathmandu Valley with my bottle, and that's another one. So I calculated that by using this bottle and refilling it over the course of 7 months, I did not contribute about 1,000, close to 1,000 plastic water bottles to the environment. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Now, I know that's a drop in the bucket, but the insight that I gained from this, oops, I forgot about that slide. This is how important this topic is. Last month, National Geographic put it on the cover. Amazing, amazing cover. The insight I gained from this was around ecotourism, which is recognizing that you do have an impact. And it was having that experience that made me feel I had an impact. And we talked about that, Philip and I, the fact that even before you start to make responsible travel choices, you have to feel it matters. You have to feel like what you do has significance. So going through this exercise, I got this feeling that I had made a small but still significant impact. And that's what sort of led me to feel empowered and to want to research and learn about more responsible choices in everything I do, including the pictures as a blogger, the pictures I post and the places I go. Perhaps I'll choose, smaller destinations instead of the big bucket list places, not contributing garbage. I mean, there's a whole plethora of things, and we could devote a whole conference to it. But I think the impact, just knowing that you have an impact, I think is the important insight. So just to summarize the key ideas, the economic issue, the profit issue, is spending money that benefits local communities, and the ecology, the planet issue, is respecting and protecting local cultures and the environment. And then ecotourism, this is the people part, just knowing that your actions have an impact and making decisions that have a positive impact on local communities and the environment. And just before I sign off, I just want to say something in defense of the personal or spiritual quest, because it sometimes doesn't get the respect I think it deserves. And my first trip to India was certainly more on the personal or spiritual quest side. And I know sometimes in the media, people think this is a self-indulgent thing to do, and I couldn't feel more differently than that. I think that when you go on a really experiential type of travel experience where you're discovering the local culture as well as yourself, I think it can really help raise your awareness and your consciousness of yourself as well as the environment, the local communities, and you can start to become a more conscious person and make better choices. So I want to advocate for going on a personal journey and not thinking of it as self-indulgent. And that's my site, and that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Marielle, please remind everyone that Turkish Airlines is the official airline to ITPNC. I know we have to just say that. Again, big round of applause.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Hope you guys all walk away here being more of a responsible traveler as you travel around the globe on your various journeys.
Thank you very much.